Ladies and gentlemen, practicing my different chess impression intros. That was a bit of Gotham in case you didn't notice. Anyway, so today's video is going to be a recap of my 5th over the board game. I had quite an easy ride on Monday against the child. This time I'm against the grown-up, and it is Ecclesall C team from Sheffield against Chesterfield B team. So Ecclesall, bigger club. My opponent's called John Crew, and he's a grown-up, so I can give you his name. And I have the black pieces, and I am on board 4 out of 6 for this game, because I've still got quite a high provisional rating. Okay, so you guys said, look, I want to see the whole game, win or lose, we don't care, show us your game, and there we go. Now, I have to say, in my defense, I'm talking to myself in the car. You know, I split myself into a ghost hunty, giving myself a lecture on a couple of things. One is know when it's right to attack, right? I noticed that in my previous couple of games I was too much on the back foot, too conservative, too reticent, too nervous. And in chess, when it's the right time to defend, you should defend. But when it's the right time to attack, you should attack. You should pressure your opponent. You should make life difficult for your opponent. So I was saying to myself, come on, Hunty, right? You know, if you can make it as hard as possible for your opponent, make it life difficult for your opponent. So that's one thing. And the other thing I said to myself is use your clock, because my previous games have finished with far too much time on the clock, and there's no excuse to blunder when you've got 50 minutes on your clock, right? So anyway, so I think I did better on the front foot, knowing when to apply pressure. I did not do very well at all on the time. So I have my sheet here where I wrote down my the moves, and I've put timestamps on. And it's a 75-minute game, so we had an hour and a quarter each. At the end of the game, I had 59 minutes still on my clock, so there you go. Anyway, let's dive in. So I have the black pieces, and we do e4 and e5. Fair enough. And then my opponent plays pawn to d4, and I'm like, it's the bloody Danish. Oh no, not the bloody Danish. Okay, now, as you know, I've played the Danish rather a lot, and I've also spent quite a lot of time looking for an anti-Danish that I could get along with, but I couldn't quite. There isn't an anti-Danish that I know properly. So I went for taking the first pawn to see what would happen, because I mean, some people will now play, you know, queen takes, or you know, there are other options to here. This is the centre game accepted. This is not the Danish Gambit. If he pushes c3, it's the Danish Gambit, and he pushes c3. So we have the Danish Gambit offered on the board, and I went for my current line, which is queen e7, right? And queen e7, the computer says this slightly favours white, but you know, that's the way of things. In fact, it's gone back to 0 now. And that, I have to say, is the limit of my my theory on this. I know that the idea is that you're pressuring this pawn, which is undefended, and the pawn is in front of the king. Okay, so the pawn is pinned. Fair enough. Yeah, the pawn is pinned. And your opponent is now faced with a bit of a problem. If they take here, you could take there, attacking the king. What's he going to do? And John now thinks for 7 minutes on his next move. It's like, he wasn't supposed to do that. He was supposed to take the pawn. Why didn't he take the pawn? Why is the pawn still on the board? I don't understand. I wanted to play this on my next move, right? So he's flummoxed. Thinks for 7 minutes, plays bishop to d3. Now this is inaccurate. This is my own marginal notes on this. So it's yes, he's defending the pawn. However, Now I'm flying solo now, right? I don't know any more theory from this point, but so now I have to rely on principles, okay, and on some calculation. So the point is, this pawn, yes, he's defended it, but it's still pinned. So pawn to d5, and that's actually the best move, it turns out. Pawn to d5, putting pressure on the pinned piece, okay. And now the best move is actually cd, here, grab the free pawn, but my opponent plays, and this I think is a mistake, queen to a4 check, and it's now gone to 2-0 in black's favour. Now, I saw this move, and my first thought is, well, I got a couple of ways of blocking. I've got 4 ways of blocking, 5 ways of blocking. So I don't really believe this move. So I went for knight c6. The thing about knight c6 is it blocks the check and defends this pawn. Apparently bishop d7 is also perfectly good here. So now what? I mean, look, this pawn is pinned. It can't take there, even though the pawn appears to hang, because it's still pinned, right? And now, you know, his queen's looking a little offside. So now he does take on d4, which, was that the best move? Okay, so knight e2 was the best move. I've got lines open here as well. He takes the pawn, which is the second best move. And now, but you know, black already has the edge in this game. Obviously my knight is pinned, so you know, my knight can't take the pawn either. So I now capture on e4, well, why not, right? It comes with tempo on the bishop, and I'm actually I'm a pawn up at this point in time. I'm also starting to think ideas of get this bishop out and long castle, get my rook on the semi-open d file, right? These are patterns that I know that I may be able to make use of later on. Opponent now plays bishop to c4. Best move was to retreat to c2, and b5 was also an idea, putting a barrage against the knight. But he plays bishop c4, and now I have a think. So I can tell you the timestamps on this. So after this move, bishop c4, he's down to 56 minutes. So he's used 19 minutes of his time on the first 7 moves. Okay, he's used 7 minutes on all the previous 3 moves. Okay, so I'm now thinking, well, I've got options. I am a pawn up. Okay, so let's kind of break down what's on the board. I'm not a million miles away from castling. So I think bishop d7 is a move, and the computer agrees with that. Knight to f6 is the second best move, but I managed to find the preferred move on the board. The other thing I'm aware of is this weakness here, right? Now the queen is offside. So the move that I came up with was queen b4 check, which, now it doesn't necessarily force a trade of queens, but the only alternative, I mean, he can't move the king, right? Because I just take the queen outright. Okay, so the only real moves are queen takes queen, or knight blocks, because the knight then defends the white queen. But if knight blocks and I take queen, he has to recapture on a4, and then his knight is offside. He's got a knight on the rim, he's got a naked king. I'm going to get this pawn, and he's going to be 2 pawns down. Okay, so he doesn't like that idea. So he plays queen takes. Now, this is the only point in the game where I know that I failed to consider 2 moves. Right? It's like I wrote down his move. Right? I saw that I'm right, like queen takes b4, you know, and I immediately then played knight takes b4, which is slightly inaccurate because bishop takes b4 was also on. I didn't even look. I did not even look. I thought, I looked up, I went, no, knight takes, no, started writing down my own move. Anyway, so I need to take 2 breaths. First thing that you have to do is nothing. Also, this comes with check as well. So he would have had to have blocked again, almost certainly. And then I could have further traded down if I'd wished, and then win the pawn, and I'm 2 pawns. Oi, that's really annoying. Stop it. You were meant to be asleep. Come here, say hello to the boys and girls. Come on. Pest. Right. Okay, can we watch some chess? It's fighting with a cardboard box. Okay, so anyway, I play knight here, which, you know, slightly inaccurate, but it's minus 2.2. Pretty much whatever white does from here. I'm attacking this and threatening this fork on king and rook, winning an exchange at the very least. I have, however, given up my attack against e4. So, you know, you can understand why bishop takes b4 is minus 2.3, knight takes b4 is minus 2.2. There's really not much in it. So, yeah, maybe it's not an inaccuracy. We'll see. And our opponent now thinks, so what can he do? He's got knight a3, kind of boomerang defending c2. That's a thing. He's got bishop back to here or bishop back to here. Obviously, this one doesn't work because I take with the knight. But, you know, bishop b3 is the thought. In fact, the computer here is saying that knight a3 is the thought. He plays the computer's second suggestion, which is king d2. Now the king has moved. Now the king has lost castling rights. And now that's going to slow down the development of these guys. So what should we do here? We have to apply pressure. So I'm thinking here, the most important thing, his king has just stepped onto the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone. Right? So what I'm thinking is, obviously, I want a long castle. I want to get my rook on d8 and apply pressure. So, best move, again, I find for black, bishop f5, right? I also have ideas of a discovered checks and things like that, and bishop slicing down near where the king is, right? So that's all good. He now plays knight to c3. This is an inaccuracy. Yeah, he's kind of looking at this pawn. The computer says, actually, it's not too bad. It's saying knight e2, a3, knight c. Actually, it's not too bad, but black is just doing a little bit better. So I long castle. This pawn is now not only pinned, but it's under attack. So something must be done. Now there is also threats. For example, let's say we'll just break out. Let's say he does something, you know, pointless like this. I've got rook takes, and he can't go here, and he can't go there, and this is not great. And if he, for example, were to go here and attack the rook, which is undefended, I would have knight to c2, defending the rook, giving check, and attacking this rook here. So that would be horrible, right? So he cannot allow me to capture this pawn with my rook, right? If I capture the pawn with a rook and he moves elsewhere, rook takes, bishop, and actually, yeah, I mean, that's even worse. Just rook takes bishop, so he's lost a pawn and a bishop. So knight knight g now comes out to b2. And now it's time to continue developing, right? So, by the way, I'm very conscious this pawn is hanging. And there are a couple of moves where the best move for white is to capture the pawn. He doesn't capture the pawn. Right. So I'm thinking, okay, well, look. This pawn is still pinned. It means this pawn is not guarding that square and not guarding that square. So develop bishop to c5. Pawn can't take because this is pinned. Now he should apparently knight to a4 hitting this bishop. But also bishop takes f7 now. Stockfish can't decide which is best. And also a3. Opponent plays a3. Okay, hits my knight. I swing back round. Only move for black. I've now got 1, 2, 3 attackers on this pawn. He has 1 defender. So what can he do? He pushes the pawn. Again, not the best move, actually, as things happen. Right? I now, because, I mean, yeah, this pawn's still pinned, so my knight isn't actually under threat. Okay, so then you're allowed to take another breath when that happens. So I see that his pawn on f2 is hanging. I grab the pawn on f2, knowing that I then have the follow-up, pawn to e3, check, creating this pawn-bishop bond right down my opponent's throat. Right, I'm almost able to pull the label off his underpants. I'm so far down his throat. Okay, and this is now starting to look very horrible. King moves across to c2, not the best move. I play e3 anyway, so now the pawn defends the bishop defends the pawn, and lo and behold, we have a discovered check as well. Okay, so this king is now putting in some miles. He blocks with the bishop, and we trade off, dragging the king back into the board. Again, this pawn is once again pinned. But at no point was he able to take the knight. All right? So I swing my knight round here. This was not the best move. Best moves for the computer were actually knight f6, develop. And there's a very good case for that, to be honest. You know, develop, connect the rooks, and line up rook h to e8. You know, centralize these, get these rooks near that king, for goodness sake, you know. But I just thought I'll keep checking him and see where he goes, kind of thing. But here he should probably go there. He should have gone to c2. He actually comes out into the board to e4, and this is not good. So now he's attacking the knight. Now he can't do anything about these guys. These guys are made. These guys are fine, right? He's attacking the knight. Okay. So I now come back to c4, and he hits my knight again, and now I play knight to f6, which is the move I should have played previously anyway, you know, covering more squares, putting another attacker on this pawn, all that kind of thing. So now he's in check, and now he's got to move, and he moves to f3. This is now minus 17 for black. I swing around with a check, and it's forced mate in 20. Okay. The only move I think for him, yeah, he has to move king to f4. There's no other move. I swing the knight round to g6 now. He's in check again. King to g5 or f5 is mate in 3 here, or mate in 2 there, so that's not going to work. He has to come back to f3. And now this is quite an interesting thing. Now, if I'd have been playing in the browser and I could colour in squares, right, I would have very happily coloured in all the squares where my opponent's king can't go. So my opponent's king is out of squares. My opponent's king can't move, so all I have to do is deliver check, right? Now that's my thinking. So the solution I come up with was to swing my unused rook round to here and deliver check and checkmate. And that's what happens, but mistake, 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 bizarrely. And now it's gone to minus 11. And at this point, I say, I think that's mate, and we shake hands and we turn in our sheets, right? It isn't actually checkmate, because he has knight blocks. He has this. And it can continue. So apparently knight takes f4 is the best move here. But let's go back again. There is actually mate in 2 at this point, interestingly. And if I go back a couple more moves, we have mate in 3 here. So it would be interesting as an exercise if you want to stop the video at this point and try and find mate in 3, because I certainly didn't do it. But this is the, you know, this I know is the growth edge for me. To see with, where are we? Move 22. I've got 59 minutes on the bloody clock. All right, I've got an hour to figure out this puzzle. An hour for a guaranteed win. I mean, I was winning anyway. My opponent was crawling in his seat. He was having a horrible time, torrid time of it. Technically, he's only 2 pawns down, but it's just absolutely disgusting. So the solution, if you want to see it, is not this knight to h4 check. Okay, so he still doesn't have these or these. So this forces king f4. Now, I mean, this is now possible, but actually the point is, so let's look at the squares where he can't go, okay, and he can't go there, and he can't go here because of the rook. So now it's simply h6, removing the last square, and then whatever he does, now, any move that he makes, g5 delivers mate, because it's no, 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 right? All we have to do is check on that square, and g5 doesn't matter whatever move he makes, g5 is mate. So there you go. So that's what I need to work. It's that final killer blow. There is definitely something too nice about my play. I mean, no, make no mistake. I pulled all his legs off one by one in this game, but I didn't stamp on him at the end, which is what you should do. You know, when when you've pulled all the legs off a spider, right? You should put the thing out of its misery. And I didn't do that, but you know, I did actually think that was mate, and so did he. And he failed to spot that the knight could block the mate. Because if the knight blocks the non-mate, so from here, we do this. If the knight blocks, the best move is actually knight takes. I think that's not very human-like. I think most of us would probably play this. Then the king escapes to e2, and it's -10 for black here, because you know I'm now up a whole piece and 2 pawns. This rook still isn't in the game. This bishop's got nothing, right? So it's a relative formality from this point, but there's no forced mate here, right? We play on from this point in time, and the agony continues for white. But yeah, really, really interesting game, going all the way to the start. And you know, we took the board to a quiet corner and replayed the opening. Because he actually said, obviously he's a Danish player, he said he'd prepared before the game, prepared some lines, this, that and the other, but he has never seen Queen e7 and had not prepared anything against Queen e7. So it knocked him off his perch from move 3, which is that's what I like to do, so I wanted to do. I've played this a few times. Let me pull open the Explorer. On chess.com, we'll say my games is black. So for this, against the Danish, I've accepted nearly all the time, and c3 has played a lot, and I've won 59% from this point in 32 games. 32 games we've had this. Look, Queen e7, I've played it 16 times with only a 38% win rate. So, you know, I knew this was not a profitable line for me. And again, bishop d3 is the most common move, right? But look at this. I've only played knight d5 twice before in 6 games. And actually white has gone on to win both times. So this is definitely a line. I mean, how often do we face the Danish, okay? So e4, e5, for me, e5, 1,500 games. How many times do we face d4? 68. So that's like 1 in about 25 games. As an e4, e5 player, about 1 in 25 games you will face the centre game. Okay, and then if you take 32 now, you know, 32 Danish Gambit. So it's not super common, but it's not uncommon. But yeah, I think that line merits a little bit of further investigation. But super satisfying result for me. So that makes it now what? Out of 5 games, I've now got 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. So pretty happy with myself over that. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that. Yeah, just really need to hone on that final killer blow, that finish him blow, don't I? Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.